On today's show, the Celtics blow out the Suns. Which team did we learn more about? Plus, Kawhi returns for the Clippers. Doc Rivers gets his revenge, and the Thunder, well, they're terrifying. All of that and more on Friday edition of Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Wes Goldberg here with Adam Mares. However you're tuning in, YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. We're going to get to a fun Mavs Thunder game, Kawhi returning to the Clippers, and a whole lot more on today's show. But let's start in Boston, where the Celtics beat the Suns 127-112. This one was a shootout, Adam. The Suns got up 99 shot attempts and had four players score at least 20 points. The Celtics dominated. They shot 25 of 50 from three-point range. Jaylen Brown had a game-high 37. Tatum had 26. What was your takeaway from this one?
This game went exactly how I expected this game to go. And that's my big takeaway. One, the Celtics were able to play in rhythm, play their style, and get up 53 pointers, in large part because I think Phoenix, some of this by virtue of their personnel and roster construction, but a lot of it due to just how injured they've been, that they don't have the continuity throughout the course of the season to be defensively on a string. So you have a defense that I don't think is very dialed in. That's going to be a type of team that's going to be playing scrambled a lot, playing in rotation. And as a result, the Celtics got a lot of open shots and they made 50% of them, 25 threes. I wonder if a team has ever lost when making 25 threes, Wes. I would venture no team has ever lost with 25 three-pointers.
It's a good bet. We'd have to look that one up, get Stat Muse on that one. But Boston Celtics Muse or whatever that Twitter account's going to be. Yeah, look, it was a high-scoring game, a lot of shot attempts. Is it bad to say that I didn't totally enjoy this game? Am I raining on the parade of just like 2024 basketball?
I love this.
It was.
You just got done watching Nuggets Heat yesterday, 88-100 grind out. Listen to Wes over here. He's a defensive elitist.
This was like, there's great basketball and then there's great shot making, and this game to me was just great shot making, right? It was just Taysom Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal just making awesome shots and like, hey, congrats. My takeaway from this one, though, is I've never really fully been able to buy into the Suns, right? And I know I'm not the only one there. You mentioned the defensive concerns. To me, it's, hey, look, I can't write them off because basically KD and Devin Booker, those guys are so great at making tough shots that you can't just write them off completely. But I think I realized what my main concern with them is when they run into another team that's elite at shot making, like Boston, I think they're exposed because they don't do anything else well. Where the Celtics do a lot of things well. The Celtics are a great passing team. They're a great defensive team. They play on a string. Like, everybody's together. It's a good system that everybody's buying into. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown have really developed a chemistry in a two-man game here. Derek White's filling in the gaps. Like, when I watch the Suns, it just feels like a pickup team of really great shot makers who don't do anything particularly well defensively. You don't really trust them in any other facet of the game other than the fact that they're going to make tough shots. So when they run into another team that's also elite at shot making, I think they're exposed. And to me, this is just like Suns versus Celtics is like the Spider-Man meme, except one is like fully dressed in clothes Spider-Man, and the other one is like, what's the actor's name? Tobey Maguire. But like with the holes in the mask and everything, like that's the Suns. They're the Tobey Maguire with the holes in the mask Spider-Man. They just too many holes in their roster.
I actually like this analogy and I like this comparison because I think the NBA right now, you could almost divide it into two categories. You have the Suns mold, a lot of bucket getters, a lot of scorers, a lot of talent, and a lot of shot making. And then on the other end, I would say you have a Denver Nuggets style team, which is very much a system, a team. They work together. They have a system,
right?
And every team falls somewhere on that spectrum. I think the Suns and the Celtics is the S tier of that version. I think Denver is the S tier of the other version. It's not that one is necessarily better than the other. I think the more you could blend those two things, the better off you are. But the Celtics, to me, represent the best version of this. They have great three-point shooting. They have great, all five pieces fit together in their starting lineup. And then they can defend as well. I think Phoenix probably matches them in shot making, but they don't match them in anything else. And I think that's what you saw tonight is, okay, they can make some shots. They shot the ball really well, but it was still a 20-point game for most of this game in the second half because one team just does a bunch of other stuff as well.
Yeah, we got garbage time for like the last 3 minutes. It was just,
Yeah.
we got some players coming off that bench that we haven't seen in a while. But I do want to talk a little bit about Jaylen Brown. Since the All-Star break, that dude's been on fire. His last 9 games, 29.8 points per game on 54% shooting. And the thing that I think Jaylen Brown at the beginning of the year was trying to find his role, kind of find his voice in this new Joe Maz 5-out Boston Celtics system. And he was forcing it a little bit, right? He was kind of just isolating when he didn't need to isolate, kind of taking tough shots when he didn't need to take tough shots. What was that game earlier in the season where he kind of just got into isolation, took a long 2 against Charlotte, and it was one of Boston's like early losses, and everybody's like, oh my God, does he really fit with what this new Celtics team is going to be? I think he's found his voice now. And the Celtics to me are just they're like a Swiss mechanic watch, right? They just run smooth. But Jaylen Brown is like the hammer that breaks the watch open when you need it to, right? And there's just so many times where there's this game or even that loss against the Nuggets the other night where he's just like, you know what? Enough with this cool, like, beautiful game 5-out stuff. I'm just going to drive it right down the other team's throat. I'm going to just pound it. I'm going to put my shoulder into the defender, and I'm going to get to the basket. And that level of physicality, I think, is really needed on this Celtics team.
Definitely.
And it's really come along strong since the All-Star break. And that, to me, is like the biggest difference. Like, the Celtics have been dominant all year. That's not a surprise. Mm-hmm. But they seem like they're going up another level now. What they've won, 15 of their last 17 games. So I'm not breaking news here. But that Jaylen Brown element is the biggest differentiator between now and then, I guess, for me.
You saying this, so that's one theory, right? He's getting more comfortable, been in the system. Maybe he's getting a little more comfortable spreading his wings, so to speak. I have another one, and it's a little bit of a half-baked theory, Wes, as you were talking.
I love it.
One of the big storylines for me of the last month is this shadow rule change, the officials, right? Free throw attempts are down. The game is getting a little grittier, a little bit more physical. What do you know? There's games that are finally scored below 100 and sometimes 80 points. So Jaylen Brown to me is the better physical player. He gets downhill, he goes to the basket, playing through contact. Hey, he's better in that system. Tatum, being a Drew Hanlon guy, being a lot of what he's trying to do when he's driving, he's trying to get to the line. He's trying to generate fouls. And we see this. He shoots about 2.5 more free throw attempts per game than Jaylen Brown on the season. But I do wonder if maybe this little stealth rule change has affected certain players disproportionately than others and has not affected or maybe even helped some players a la Jaylen Brown. It's just let me know in the comments. I'm curious. It's a half-baked theory here. I'm thinking it up as we go.
I not to turn it back into a Miami Heat conversation as I so often do, but this is the problem that Jimmy Butler's dealing with over these last few games. Right. Is he's getting to the line 4 times per game right now as opposed to 10 times per game where they were during the winning stretch that they had. And Jimmy Butler is one of those guys that kind of like seeks contact and he's trying to get to the line. And sometimes you just got to go like where Jaylen Brown – he's physical, but I don't like watch him and say, okay, he's trying to get to the line. He's just trying to bump into somebody and get to his spot.
He's a bull. He plays downhill.
Mm-hmm. And I think Jimmy Butler and guys like Jimmy Butler who might need to be adjusting to this stuff need to play a little bit more like that, right? And great Heat fans are going to come after me saying that Jimmy Butler has to play more like Jaylen Brown. That's not exactly what I'm saying, so step off. But I think Jaylen's been awesome during this stretch, and Tatum just went shot for shot with KD in this game. I don't know. I watch this game and I think about Phoenix's outlook in the Western Conference, and I'm like, okay, so who's the other great shot-making team in the West, right? Like if we're talking about playoff viability here, Denver obviously is a great shot-making team. The Clippers are an incredible shot-making team. We're going to talk about Kawhi Leonard coming back later on, but he looked great. There's even if you look at the play-in tournament, like between LeBron and AD on the Lakers, Steph Curry with the Warriors, like there's great shot-making teams that can get hot. And if Phoenix runs into those teams when those teams are making those shots, I don't know, man. I feel like I know it's just one game, but I feel a lot worse about the Suns coming after this game. Am I overreacting?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, fair, yeah.
I mean, for one, this is a team that it's been true all year, but it's been true definitely over the last couple of weeks. They just haven't been complete. And I know you get your big 3 tonight, but there's going to be a little bit of rhythm finding. You have the Celtics, you're going on the road. By the way, they're on a road trip and you have to figure out that rhythm against the Celtics. So I think you're overreacting a little bit, but I think your broader point is why I don't buy them as the team that I would pick to come out of the West. It's possible they do. They're talented enough. The shot making is great enough. They just need that shot making to kind of coalesce 4 times in 7 games, 4 different occasions. They'll win a championship. And that is possible with the type of shot makers they have. But your broader point, I don't think is something that does fix with more chemistry of like, okay, they're going to cope. They're going to become this team. They're going to learn how to defend. They're going to be, more versatile. Cause I just don't think they are any of those things. They rely so heavily on Jusuf Nurkic. And by the way, 7 offensive rebounds tonight, 8 points. This is the thing. Jusuf Nurkic is so great at getting second chance opportunities. And oftentimes he will reset the play and get it out to an open shooter. But more than I think most players, he grabs offensive rebounds and then misses the putback. He might be the greatest player in the NBA at doing that exact thing. Him or Andre Drummond. And I just keep seeing this for him. 9 offensive rebounds, 11 points. And you think, how? How did you get that many chances and didn't capitalize?
It's a great point. And that was one place where Boston is a little bit weak. No Kristaps Porzingis for them tonight, which matters. But
matters a lot.
Yeah, it does.
Especially against Nurkic.
It does. I did mention Kawhi Leonard. Good news for the Clippers. That should make Clippers fans feel better about their chances in the West. We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On fantasy basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. I'm going with Jock Landale. Here's what Josh writes. Landale is going to see larger minutes with Alperen Sengun's season done in Houston. Adam, I peeked the ad copy here before we started recording here, and I was like, okay. And I do this every week. I'm like, who's Josh picking for us? Like kind of later in the week. He had Jock Landale, and I was like, that's a great call. Okay. I kind of need some center depth. I'm dealing with some injuries. Evan Mobley's in and out of my lineup and stuff like that. Yeah. I went, found him on the waiver wire, dropped a guard, got Jock Landale on my team. I think I'm feeling good for the next couple of weeks for this final regular season stretch. Other names he's got, Keontae George, who's been taking charge in Utah. He is balling. Norman Powell, who's balling too. More minutes with Westbrook out.
Yeah.
Maybe
Harden was out tonight. Yeah.
Harden was out tonight. I mean, he looks great. So just some really, and Grady Dick on the Raptors. He's
actually playing well. He was my worst player in the NBA earlier this year. Now he's a good player. It's an incredible rise.
It's amazing. Great little rookie story for him. Josh Lloyd from Locked On Fantasy Basketball is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is all about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your car needs, eBay Motor has it. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride for the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber and not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Before we get to OKC and Dallas, let's go to Milwaukee, where the Bucks came back from 12 down to beat the 76ers. Giannis had 32 points. The Bucks win the game 114-105. And my favorite little nugget from this one, Doc Rivers, now 4-0 this season against his former teams. He's beaten the Sixers twice. He's beaten the Clippers twice. Isn't that great for Doc?
Good for Doc, man. I like it. The Doc Revenge Tour, by the way. I feel like Doc has his flaws, as most coaches do. I feel like Doc has taken so many, everybody piled on him, especially when he came over and they were struggling at first. Yeah. So this is how I was with Rudy Gobert. I got to a point where I was like, people are too mean to him. This is how I feel for Doc. I'm rooting on the Revenge Tour now.
My quick Doc Rivers theory is that he is so great with the media that the media basically treated him like he could do no wrong for years. And we've had a little bit of an overcorrection on that, to the point where there's kind of outside media who don't really deal directly with Doc kind of going hard on him in that overcorrection. I think he's an okay coach. I think he's fine, and he's obviously an upgrade from what they were dealing with before. Let's go to Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers. Kawhi returned to the Clippers after leaving that game in Minnesota the other night with back spasms. In this game against Chicago, he had 27 points. The Clippers win over the Bulls. No James Harden for the Clippers. He's dealing with a shoulder thing. Kobe White was out for Chicago. But if you're a Clippers fan, you got to love seeing Kawhi back and playing like this, Adam.
I mean, for sure, because anytime Kawhi goes out, you get worried. Is this a long one? Is this a big deal? But as much as Kawhi Leonard, who was 12 of 17 tonight, by the way, for 27 points, was really good, is the story. To me, you could also go with Paul George, 11 of 12, just hyper efficient for his 28 points. Or you could go with what I would pick, which is Bones Highland, moving into the starting lineup. Remember, a couple weeks back, and for most of the year, he's not in the rotation. You get the injury to Westbrook. Okay, he's playing some minutes, not really making shots, but he's playing well. He's playing within himself. And tonight he gets a chance to start. And what does he do? 17 points, 11 assists, 5 rebounds, 4 steals, 4 of 7 from 3, 6 of 9 from the floor. Looks both in control and aggressive. Bones is a player, man. He's a good, talented player. He needs to get his head on his shoulders. Maybe these last couple of years have humbled him. But when I see nights like this one, I go, that's the Bones I kind of expect.
The most important stat there, well, I guess the two, but the most important one is the 11 assists, obviously. That's the thing. We know the dude
can pass.
The guy can get buckets. But, yeah, he can pass when he wants to. The 11 assists was huge. I love the 4 steals because that just fit. Every team kind of has their formula for winning games, and part of the Clippers' formula is get steals, get out in transition, speed up the game a little bit in that way, defense into offense. And if he's contributing to that with 4 steals, even better. But let's go to what I thought was the best game of the night in Oklahoma City, where the Thunder beat the Mavericks 126-119. No Luka Doncic, who sat out with a hamstring. Kyrie Irving had 36 points. He kept the Mavericks in the game, but the Thunder were just way too much in the end. They got 31 from SGA, 27 from Jalen Williams, including the exclamation point dunk at the end. This was a fun one, Adam. What was your takeaway?
Well, I like that you said the exclamation point, because it was. He missed the 3, gets the rebound, comes back to him, and he goes and he punctuates it.
The tomahawk one-handed. Love it.
Yeah. I love this Thunder team, man. I mean, it's hard to have a big takeaway from the game because Dallas was without Luka, and then they lose Josh Green halfway through it. They lose Dante Exum halfway through it. The Mavs are dropping like flies. But no, I mean, this Thunder team, hard to beat, especially at home. And what do you know? This game moves them back into first place. Them in Denver kind of going back, half game back and forth here the last couple of days. But it moves them back to first place. So this was one of the games when you looked at the Thunder roster, they do not, or the schedule, they do not have a tough schedule from here on out relative to most teams. Mm-hmm. This is one of the games that if you were looking at it and say, okay, where are the potential losses? This was one of them. And they get the win and they take care of business.
I always talk about the Thunder being terrifying. They're just terrifying. It's every time you feel like you got them solved, another leak springs loose, and you're like, now I got to deal with this. It's like, oh my God, we've contained SGA. Now Jalen Williams is going off. Maybe we'll be able to cut off the driving lanes here. And oh my God, no, Chet Holmgren is flaring out for a 3-pointer. And oh my God, Lou Dort's making corner threes now. It's just every single time. Oh, now they're bringing Kassan Wallace off the bench, and he's a real player.
Love that dude. He's good.
Over the last 2 months, the guy's just exploded. Isaiah Joe has these nights where he just
goes
like
4
for 7 from 3-point range. I saw him miss a 3-pointer for the first time in my life tonight, Adam.
Yeah, it was the first one he's ever missed. He's incredible, man. And I got to say, I actually think so. Another storyline from tonight, which has been a storyline all year, but seems to be picking up momentum post All-Star, is that teams are just not guarding Giddey.
I wanted to ask you about Giddey. Yeah.
They're just not guarding him, and they're daring him to shoot. And he missed a lot of them tonight. He goes 2 of 7, and I think all of them wide open. Mm-hmm. But he did make a couple that were important, like down the stretch when Dallas starts to, okay, we need a run. We can't get a stop, so we're going to dare them to give the ball to him, and he knocks it down. Those are the backbreakers. But the reason I brought it up, and right after talking about Isaiah Joe, I just love Isaiah Joe, and I have a feeling that because I always think he's going to make shots. And as much as he can compromise you a little bit defensively, I know Giddey's not the best defender. I think they're going to close a lot of games with Isaiah Joe in the playoffs out of necessity. Because in the playoffs, teams really hone in on, okay, if that guy can't shoot, we're going to pack the paint. Give him Isaiah Joe. The paint's going to be wide open, and they sure seem to be able to score on anybody when they have an open paint.
They have closed a lot of games with Isaiah Joe in that Giddey spot. They closed tonight with Wallace in that Giddey spot because they needed a little bit more defense to contain Kyrie Irving, and that didn't even work. But they went with it, and they tried it. And I could see them going both ways. The Giddey thing has started to pick up steam, and a lot of people I think are assuming that he's going to be out of maybe not the starting lineup. That seems a little extreme to me, but maybe not the closing lineup. Maybe you see his minutes dwindle as they go further in the playoffs. I don't really know ultimately what they're going to do, obviously. I do think we're going a little bit too far in the direction of just assuming, though, that he's just going to be like out of the lineup or not part of the equation. Giddey.
He won't be out of the lineup, but you're talking about closing games, closing halves, those types of high leverage moments. And I do think that right now you kind of like grin and bear it. And look, they've won a lot of games. I think they're going to do that early on in series. But this is the nature of the playoffs. Right now, teams are not adjusting their game plans very much. Even against teams that are in your own division, the teams that you see a lot, you're not making a lot of adjustments. In the playoffs, you are. And that's just one very obvious adjustment that clearly Oklahoma City, if you ask the Oklahoma City players, give everybody Shrew serum, and said your playoff aspirations are going to come down to whether or not Giddey can go better than 2 of 7 in a playoff series, they would not take it. They would say, we're not going to risk our playoffs on that.
If I could just provide the other side of the argument for Giddey, right?
Please.
But
please do.
So Dallas tonight, they put Gafford on Giddey, quote unquote, on Giddey, and Gafford basically, or PJ Washington when they go small, they put whoever their 5 is on Giddey, and they have that player go into the paint and just basically try to cram things up for SGA and Jalen Williams so that they don't have those driving lanes. And then obviously they take it out, they pass it out to Giddey, and then he either makes or misses. More often tonight, misses the corner jumper from 3-point range. So I get it. I understand what teams are going to do. My thing is, that only works against a team that needs that space. SGA and Jalen Williams prove time and time again, they don't really even need the space necessarily to get their shots off. There were multiple times tonight where they said, okay, Gafford's in the paint, I'm just going to shoot over him. So Giddey still, SGA still had 30-plus points in this game. And what Giddey does provide in terms of the passing, and he's quietly kind of one of OKC's best defensive rebounders. His defensive rebounding rate is like right behind Chet Holmgren. And that's something that this team desperately needs. So when you start thinking about the things that he adds to this group, and obviously with the size, that's a little helpful
He's useful.
Too. Like there's a lot of useful things that he adds to the group. So look, I agree with you. Closing lineups, he's probably not going to be a part of them. But there have been some people just saying like, oh, like after the Gordon Hayward trade, is he going to take his starting spot? I'm like, no, we're going too far. Like there's a lot of things that Giddey does that's really helpful to this team too. But we've already seen Mark Daigneault make that decision of, okay, we're closing with Isaiah Joe or Kassan Wallace or somebody else in a lot of these matchups, and that's fine. But I think we just got to remember also what Giddey provides this team. That's all.
He provides a lot. I definitely don't think he's like an out-of-the-rotation guy. When you look at it right now, they have an incredible 5-man lineup. Statistically, something that they're very confident with. I think they're going to have to tweak that. More so than a lot of the teams that have great 5-man lineups. I think they're probably going to be the one that has to tweak it. But we'll see.
They're saving it a little bit too. Like that's like their next like level, to reach in the playoffs. But
I will say this, because Thunder fans, I think, because I bring this up a fair amount on different shows that I do, I will say this. I think the Thunder are going to be the 1 seed. I think they're Denver neck and neck right now. Denver's won 10 of their last 11. They're playing great ball. I think that the Thunder will be the 1. I think Denver will be the 2. And then I think there'll be a little bit of a cushion there for 3 and 4.
Yeah, I think that's how it's kind of trending in that direction, isn't it? So I think it's a good call. The Mavericks, we haven't talked a lot about them now. They keep us guessing. Which teams keep us guessing the most? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Stitch Fix. You know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good? That's what you're going to get with Stitch Fix. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that work for you. Just give your stylist your size, style, and budget preferences. Order boxes when you want and how you want. No subscription required. And they send 5 just for you pieces, plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice so you know how to dress yourself. Keep what works, send back the rest. Stitch Fix makes it easy. If you don't like the shop, they save you the time and effort, and you still get outfits that make you look and feel good. And if you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. Thanks for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. It's Friday, which means it's time to count down to the weekend with our weekly power rankings.
I'm not a system player. I am a system player.
There it is.
What are we counting down today, Adam?
We are counting down the most two-faced teams in the NBA.
Ooh.
The most two-faced. You think they're good? Then they show you their other face, and you go, oh, my God, that team is terrible.
I love it. Let's start.
These are the teams, Wes, I'm telling you, all year we do analysis, we make predictions. These are teams that all of the teams in the top 5 are teams that I have gone all in on at some point in the season and said, there it is. They're turning the corner. And no sooner have I said that they have gone on losing streak. I'm going to start with number 5. This is actually a team I've never bought, but they're still a little two-faced. The LA Lakers.
LA Lakers. Okay.
LA Lakers with LeBron James, of course, Anthony Davis, Austin Reeves. There's been so many times this year where the Lakers, even Lakers fans, have felt like, there it is. That's the team. Do we have our warts? Sure. But you get those two guys together, anything's possible, making shots. And then you have other nights, as they had just, I think, last night, where you watch them and you're like, this is not a play-in team, let alone a contender or anything like that. So this team to me has been very hot or cold. They look all right. I never think they look great, but they look all right. And then they go and play the Sacramento Kings and they lose every time.
They're so two-faced. And my favorite part about them being two-faced, it's not just what happens on the court, but it's like what happens off the court with their dealings with the media and everything like that. I love, you mentioned the Kings game on Wednesday night. That was an ESPN game. So ESPN.com runs this long story feature on D'Angelo Russell about how he was almost traded, but he came back from it and he just blocked out the outside noise and just started playing his best ball of the season. And all of that was true. And then the day that feature runs, a few hours later, he goes 2 for 9 for 6 points. It's classic two-face. It's classic two-face. I'm surprised they're only number 5. Who's number 4?
Classic two-face behavior right there. Number 4, there's a lot of two-face teams here. Number 4, the Phoenix Suns.
We gotta go. Yeah.
Now, the Phoenix Suns have had a lot of injuries, so I almost want to give them a little bit of a pass. But at the same time, we knew they were good. We can't use the excuse if we knew it was going to happen coming into the year. They're a team to me that when they are on and making their shots, you look at that and you go, oh my God, who's beating that team? How do you stop all the scores? They got so many different ways to beat you. And then other nights you watch them and they just look like, they look like they're the 7 seed in the West, which is what they actually are.
Their two-facedness almost comes from the fact that sometimes they go onto the court feeling like they have already won the championship. And I mean that like almost in a good way. They're like, okay, we're world beaters. Nobody could stop us. And they come out with that energy and you're like, maybe nobody can stop you. And then other nights they're like, is there even a basketball game tonight? Like they just kind of walk around. And so it's like two-faced effort almost.
They've lost to the Spurs twice. They lost to Portland when KD scored 40. KD had 40 and they lost. Like they have some real duds. They lost to Atlanta. They just have some real duds.
They're one of those teams where like when their highest scorer goes off, there's some teams where it's like, okay, if Jokic has like 45 points or if Joel Embiid has like 50 points, I'm like, that team probably won. When Kevin Durant has 40 points, I'm like, I still have no idea what happened in that game. It doesn't matter.
I can't believe this next team is only 3. These top 3 all easily, you could put them in any order, shuffle them up. Okay. It's your Miami Heat.
Number 3, that makes sense.
They're currently on a 4-game losing streak. Right before that, they had a 5-game winning streak. They have a 6-game losing streak earlier in the year.
The only team in the league with a 7-game losing streak and a 7-game winning streak.
They should have been number 1. What am I doing?
I know.
This team might win. This team might win the title, Wes. But they also are terrible. I don't get it. I don't know what's going on here.
Welcome to the Miami Heat experience. Not just this season, but for the last 3 seasons. I have no idea what this team is. They go as Jimmy Butler goes, and Jimmy Butler has 2 faces. He's got faces with dreadlocks. He's got faces with emo hair and piercings. He's got a lot of different faces.
It's been emo Jimmy, man, the last 4 games for sure.
It has felt a little emo, yeah.
These top 2, though, it's more personal because they fooled me. The Heat haven't fooled me. I've always known what they were, which is a team that can go to the finals. I mean, we know that. These next 2 have fooled me, though, man. The Dallas Mavericks, you mentioned them earlier. They've got Luka. He's unbelievable. Did you see earlier this year he had 73 points, Wes?
I do recall.
You remember that? He's unbelievable. He puts up 30-point triple-doubles every night, and yet sometimes they lose to the 76ers without Embiid. Sometimes they get on these little losing streaks and drop to bad team. They are a scary team. Nobody wants them in the playoffs. You don't want to go up against Luka, and they're also not that scary.
Yeah, Jason Kidd is like sometimes a good coach and sometimes the worst coach in the league, right? If you talk to Matt, like Nick Angstad, who does Locked On Mavs and Locked On NBA, it's like I can't tell how he really feels. I think he wants him fired now. PJ Washington, by the way, what a terrible game from him tonight. Not to pick on him, but 1 of 11 overall, 0 for 7 from 3-point range, and it always feels like in every Mavericks game, some player is having a game like that, and it's on Luka when healthy and Kyrie when healthy and some of these other guys to step up and make up for that. Yeah. And I feel like that's the biggest problem with Dallas is somebody's just out there laying an egg every single night, and it's like on everybody else to kind of rally around them and make up for it, and then also get the win.
Right.
And that's what I think is so hard for Dallas. And then sometimes the defense is good and sometimes it's not. So
PJ Washington definitely shot below his average, but you know who really shot below his average tonight? Daniel Gafford. Missed 3 shots tonight, Wes.
I know. what was that Wilt Chamberlain stat going around? He like hit 33 shots in a row. Wilt Chamberlain has the record for 35. Great company for Daniel Gafford.
And he blew it. He blew it. No,
Luka
Luka
on a tip back. That's how he blew it.
That's too bad.
Looked like Yusuf Nurkic out there.
And then number 1, I think this one, it's maybe Miami. This one is another one. It's the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah.
This is a team, man, that I love. I love them, but you wouldn't know it because every time I say I love them, they do something to hurt me. I think they're really good, Wes. I actually buy them. I think they're an actual good team now. I think they've turned the corner. They have 3 winning streaks since January 31st. They have a 3 4-game winning streaks in there. So they've been mostly good lately. But when they're bad, I mean, I picked them in the in-season tournament to make some noise.
I think that is very loud in a lot of people's memories, is just how much of a flop that was in the in-season tournament, because they don't have a lot of national TV games anymore.
Yeah.
Because the shine on Zion is kind of rusted a little bit. People aren't as interested to watch him. So I think they're kind of quietly under the radar. They remind me a lot of what the Sacramento Kings were last year in terms of a team that just keeps stacking wins, in a really tough conference. But nobody was really taking the Kings seriously in the playoffs last year. But I think Sacramento beats the Warriors if De'Aaron Fox doesn't break his finger and Domantas Sabonis doesn't get his chest caved in by Draymond Green in that series. Like that was and either way, that was a really competitive close series against the defending champs. And like I don't know if I'm gonna pick the Pelicans in any series, but I think they that's a legitimately good team that we should take seriously in whatever matchup that they end up drawing. And it just feels like people are overlooking the Pelicans, and there's a lot of reasons for that. You mentioned them being two-faced. They might have like 4 faces. I have no idea what to make of this Pelicans team. But if they got it, I'm not taking them. I'm not going to say they're going to roll over in the playoffs. You got to take them seriously.
They're tough. They do things that at a really high level that you really have to adjust for. Zion's attacking of the paint is one of them. They have a lot of length on defense. They have some of my favorite defenders in all of the NBA with Dyson Daniels. I know he's out right now, Herb Jones, and then my guy Trey Murphy who's really coming on. So they have so many pieces that I love. By the way, I even like a guy that's not playing
by 20 to the Cavs last night.
Well, that happens, man.
Just as we were all kind of catching up on the Pelicans, we're like, oh wait, this team's good. They drop an egg. That's exactly why they're number 1 on this list.
I was about to shout out Jordan Hawkins, who I really like. He's not playing a whole lot, but he's another guy that's just in the pipeline for them. So, the Pelicans are really good, man, but just don't believe in them. Pelican fans, I'm only doubting you because you don't want me to believe in you. The moment I believe in you, your other face will show.
Give me one more shout out. One guy on the Pelicans roster. Just got to say the name. That's all you got to say.
Herb Jones.
Herb Jones.
My guy.
That's how we ended here.